Have you ever done the ABC diversity things?
I mean, I do.
Like don't they like diversity showcases?
Yeah.
I've seen.
I've heard things. I have a good amount of about it. Yeah.
Some people have like an awesome experience.
Exactly. Some people were like, oh, that's just, they just do that so they can say that
They did it.
Well, it's interesting because the book takes to their distribution.
It's a tough problem to crack.
Well, no, I saw Bela Fleck and I haven't watched it. And I've never been listening to that jazz.
That's the new thing.
Yeah. It's on Franklin and, well, if you got off at the Civic Center, you just walk up. It's like behind the opera.
I never know.
It's a cool thing. No, it doesn't feel that way at all. It feels like.
Oh, for TV. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it is. Right, that's right. Yeah, you just gotta try it.
But that's what it is. Business is hard for people to risk. It always takes other people to be brave and be like, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Once it starts.
Sure.
And then everybody just copies.
Yeah, like, oh, look how bold that guy was.
And I saw her.
Look, he made money. I want to do
Yeah.
that. That's really what it is.
I mean, I think
Is it? Oh, is it the one where it's like $10? $5, no matter where you're going.
Why is it like
Is it like is it app-based version?
And this is really.
$5 anywhere?
So there's the, it's 1631 Street.
Oh, so it's all, it's like sort of this uptown, it's all just for uptown.
All the way east coast. Yeah, because there's no crosstown trains. Yeah.
do know there's more below 34th Street. Yeah, that's a
Why
random.
34? Earl Square right there, but like, so really like park. It's also somewhat arbitrary. Yeah. Both those bookends are.
It's the end of the park. I don't know if they don't want to go, but it's not even.
Well, it's like, what does the park go up to? Like 90s? Oh, the park goes up to 1%.
So I think it's more like a visual, this chunk of the city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's arbitrary. I don't think it's, they could have easily chosen 14th Street,
Well, you really need to put the square in there because like there's a subway everywhere in the square. So that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Good evening. Welcome to the Asia Society, and thanks for coming out on a rainy Monday right after Thanksgiving. And I have rushed here right from Newark Airport so that I could be here because I'm really excited about this book and about this event. And really glad to have all of you here. As you probably know, we have an ongoing relationship not only with Eric, but with the Filipino-American creative, I wanted to say bombshell, but that didn't sound good. Then I thought about a hurricane. That didn't sound good. But there's an incredible amount of energy in the creative Filipino-American community here in New York City. So it's been an incredible delight to be a small part of helping to bring it to audiences. And tonight is no different. Having Eric Gamalinda's new book here, Descartes Highlands, which will thrill you, freak you out, entice you, and disturb you, and all the good things you want from books, right? This book really has it. It's a very interesting and gripping tale, which you'll get a little taste of tonight. And I'm particularly thrilled that our old friend Jessica Hagedorn, who is not old, by the way, is here with us tonight. See, I get punchy when I get off an airplane. What can I say? I'm with you. All of us who are young in spirit are very excited to be here. And Jessica's done many things on our stages, so we're thrilled that they will be in conversation. And Eric's wonderful idea of having actors enliven and animate the literary work is also a really special treat. I want to thank Akashic Books and Katie Martinez and her colleagues. We have been doing what has turned out to be a series with Akashic, and it's been great. Last year we did Manila Noir. Yay. And then just a few weeks ago we did Tehran Noir. We're in a kind of noir moment. And then tonight, so we're thrilled. I hope that you will explore the Asia Society. In addition to doing Filipino-American programs, we do other programs as well, including programs that are in our museum, policy programs, business programs, really Asia across the board. And that's one of the things I think is so unusual about this space and the Asia Society, because it's understanding Asia from a three-dimensional standpoint, and the idea that the kind of differentiated and unique aspects of each artist or thinker can really come to the fore, and you get a kind of comparative understanding of both a place, a person, and a region. And so that makes it a really exciting place to be around. So I hope you'll hang out and see the Nanjumpek exhibition, Becoming Robot, which is downstairs. See the store, which is also downstairs. And you'll see that there are many programs, and often when we don't have a chance, if you're not in the city or you have friends that are elsewhere, we are live webcasting, live streaming most of our programs here because we want to make them available and we want to bring people into the conversation. So if you see something that's interesting and whoever you're thinking about isn't here in the city or it's you yourself, you can often join in, and usually we'll try to put something up as well. Just moving ahead, I want to mention that on December 15th, we're going to have Elizabeth Pisani here talking about her new book, Indonesia, Etc., which is a kind of look at Indonesia today from an interesting journalist. And she'll be here talking about the new book, so I hope you can join us. So now we want to get started, though. And I think you all have bios in the material, so I won't go into all of that, except to say that the format will be Eric will come and give a kind of overview so that you have an idea, a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going. We'll have a dramatic reading and then a conversation, and we'll invite all of you. And then we would love to have you hang out, talk to the authors, and pick up a book if you're so inclined. So on that note, I'd like to ask Eric Gamalinda to come up, and please give him a warm hand.
Hey, thanks for coming. So I've always wanted a different kind of book launch. So what we're going to do tonight is I've invited a bunch of amazing actor friends to enact some scenes from the book. So basically the story is about two men living in different parts of the world who share some kind of dark secret. They don't know each other, but they do know that they were sold for adoption by their American father sometime in 1972, right when Ferdinand Marcos was about to declare martial law in the Philippines. And I think you'll get a taste of the story once we get into the reading. So why don't we start doing that? And just like the book, there will be very little author intrusion. I'll be here to just introduce some of the scenes. This first excerpt is a bunch of different scenes from the book. It's a series of excerpts from the story of the second son, whose name is Matthew, who grew up in France. Here we look at his nascent relationship with his Thai girlfriend, Jania. Matthew has just revealed to Jania a discovery he had made shortly after his parents' death, that he was adopted to replace their 2-year-old son who was lost at sea in the Philippines.
Lenapool is a weird town, one of those intermediate places that people don't really stop for, overshadowed by its larger, grander cousin, Can. Its anonymity has always appealed to me, and I never saw any reason to give up my parents' apartment. Janya's been looking at a bunch of souvenirs. One of them is a clay figurine of a little boy, a little imp poised to take a leak, its little hand wrapped around its penis. Beside it is a replica of a grinning gargoyle, an elongated tongue sticking out of its wide mouth. Both were designed by the late eccentric American millionaire Henry Clews, whose outlandish chateau by the shore is probably the town's most prominent attraction. Don't tell me you're gonna get that.
The peeing boy or the gargoyle?
Doesn't matter, they're equally disgusting.
Aw, I think the boy's pretty cute. He reminds me of the boy in your films. Kind of looks like him, too.
All little boys look the same. So, what's your story? I've told you a lot of things nobody else in the world would ever know. What dark, delicious secret will you share with me?
Nothing.
Not fair.
Compared to yours, my life story is really dull. I'm almost ashamed to even talk about it.
Try.
Okay, I have 8 brothers and 12 uncles, and I've always wanted to be a boy.
Interesting.
I'm not a lesbian.
Okay, just a passing thought.
You're my first real relationship.
And the others were, what, unreal?
False starts.
Later, Jania decides to go back to the street market to purchase a statue of the little boy for Matthew, who remains in the apartment. It is at this point that his seizures begin again, an affliction he has never told Janya. Janya finds him sprawled on the floor.
Something's happened. Someone's spoken to me.
Who?
Matthew.
The lost boy?
The same fucking one.
Was that what the vertigo was all about?
What vertigo?
Bangkok, my apartment, Mai Tai?
No. I don't know. This hasn't happened in a while.
When was the last time it happened?
Not sure. Months before my parents' accident. Since then, I've been completely well.
Well, how did you get well?
I was in a monastery.
What?
My parents put me in a monastery. They asked the monks if they could, heal me.
This is getting really bizarre, Matthew.
It's right there. Half an hour by ferry from Cannes. You can see it from here. I often wondered if they ever remembered me and asked themselves if I was okay.
And does that have something to do with the lost boy?
It's got everything to do with the lost boy. I want to tell you the whole story, but I'm not sure I want to.
No boundaries.
You sure?
You said you think the boy's spoken to you. What could he have possibly said?
I don't know. He said everything's already been revealed, I think.
I don't get it.
I don't either. I think it's something to do with his being lost. Maybe he's trying to tell me what really happened.
That's so Stephen King.
I know. Yet, I didn't feel spooked at all. I wanted to know.
Did you, speak to him?
I think I tried, but it was kind of frozen. My words were coming out weird, like what happens during a nightmare when you want to do something but can't.
So that's all he said, that everything's been revealed.
One boy will be lost and another will be saved.
What?
That's what else I remember him saying.
What does that mean?
It's from one of my parents' films. It was a prediction some mystic in Normandy told Annette.
Maybe it's your mind, Matthew. That happens. Maybe it's you recalling your mother's film.
You know what? I think you're right. Of course that's what it is. It just sounded so real, the voice. I mean, like it was whispering close to my ear.
I'd like to see them.
The other films?
Yeah,
There's a whole bunch of them.
we have a whole bunch of time.
Weeks later, Janya is in the kitchen brewing some tea. I hear the kettle whistle. It keeps on whistling for a long time, one long, insistent siren's note, and finally I have to get up to see what's happening. She's standing by the kettle, watching the thin jet of steam blowing out of the spout. In her hand are 2 bags of jasmine tea. On the tray beside the cups lies her plane ticket, torn in 2. Water's boiling. You've torn your ticket. She pulls the lid out and drops the bags 2 at a time, absently, dropping the paper tags as well. She realizes her mistake, tries to scoop them out with a spoon, and drops the spoon, clattering on the stove as a mushroom cloud of white hot steam scalds her hands. I hold her hand under the cold water tap. You okay?
Let's solve this mystery once and for all. Let's go there.
Where?
There, where your parents lost the boy.
On the plane in Manila, she tells me she has one more secret she can share only with me. Uh-oh, is this about your being a boy?
I found your stepbrother.
What?
There's a guy in New York who claims to be some relation, something about your supposedly biological father.
Is he like asking you to deposit some money in a Nigerian bank? Really, Janya?
Well, assuming that the emails I've been getting are reliable, your real father apparently sowed some really wild oats in Manila, ran short of cash, as most hippies island hopping in Southeast Asia did in those days, got involved in some kind of local racket, and produced a nice clutch of sons to sell.
Great. My dad was a bimbo.
A surrogate father.
A himbo, whatever.
And this guy from New York says he's one of the sons.
Like puppies in a puppy mill.
Don't you ever want to know?
No.
It could tell you something about your condition.
My condition?
Your seizures. I mean, isn't that hereditary or something?
What would finding out do?
I don't know, Matthew. Maybe some research has already been done that could, help.
Yeah, like they can snip some nasty gene and I'd be as good as new.
Okay. End of conversation.
A stepbrother, for Christ's sake? In New York. My God, the epicenter of con artists. Is he in a Ponzi scheme or something?
All right, already.
I mean, really, Janya. Where did you find this wacko?
In some message posted on some website. I was Googling you.
Why?
I was looking to see if there was anything, some archive or something, about accidents involving tourists in San Crisostomo. It was an exercise in futility, of course. No news from that island ever went out until fairly recently.
Okay, let me just warn you that A, there are thousands of scams lurking on the internet. And B, close to 75% of material you find there is unreliable. Not to forget C, there are probably thousands of other losers with the same freaking story.
Just indulge me, okay? Indulge the investigative nosy in me.
I told you the answer is in the films. Besides, it's been so long, we won't find anything there. This is nothing but a sentimental journey.
We're doing this for you. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Think of it as a vacation.
Janya has to spend a few days doing her work. She's a sweatshop monitor while urging Matthew to do some investigating in Manila.
A local official, a small-time warlord with his own posse of slum-dwelling thugs, underpaid cops, and drug pushers, offers to take me around the city's low-income neighborhoods, but not even he really understands what I'm looking for. He thinks I'm looking to adopt a kid. Some families offer me their children, sick children, starving children, kids worse off than dogs. And when I say I'm looking to adopt one, when I say I'm not looking to adopt one, they offer them just the same, saying in no uncertain terms that the kids are okay for me to fuck. $20, $50, and I can fuck any kid I want. Janya suggests that I go to City Hall and tell them I'm looking for my biological mother. 25 people show up. Everyone wants to claim me. Everyone has a document, a witness, a story to tell. Everyone will do anything to get out. I call Janya again. She's still somewhere north, wrapping up her last assignment before our flight.
Any new clues?
I give up.
Oh, Matthew.
Listen, I just realized something. If someone had screwed up, if Sylvain and Annette had not come to take me, I would have ended up as somebody else. I would have been one of these people, wretched as rats, still waiting for someone to save me.
You okay?
Yeah. No. Last night I had a dream. I was in some kind of time warp. I was trapped here like everyone else, helpless and doomed. And I hated him. I hated him so much I wanted to kill him.
Who?
My father, the guy who left me here. He should have just aborted me or something. But to leave me in a hellhole like this, that was real shit.
FYI, abortion would have been out of the question. It's illegal here. Always has been. This is paradise for the Christian right.
Yeah, that fucker had no choice. He had to have me. Loser. You know what, though? Maybe Sylvain and Annette knew he was. A loser, I mean. Maybe, they thought when I started getting, defective, well, you know what? It's the loser gene showing up. They knew this was going to happen someday. Maybe that's why they just gave up on me. Damaged goods. Hello? Did you hear a word I said? I don't want to know. I don't want to know why he gave me up. I don't want to know what happened to him. Janya.
Matthew, speak up. Oh, shit.
Hey, Janya?
Hey, he did me a favor by letting you live. Does that make you feel better?
We're gonna... Now we're gonna switch gears. This is an excerpt from the journal written by the father, Andrew Bretsky. He's being held in a provincial jail by someone called the lieutenant, who Lex will be portraying now, along with a student activist and a rapist named Eddie.
The lieutenant's sitting at his desk, face to face with the student. It looks out of whack and surreal, like they're just drinking and playing cards. Winged termites buzz around the bulb over their heads. They smash against the hot bulb and burn. Their wings, like small sheets of glass, flutter down and glisten on the surface of the desk.
Now we're really going to have a good time.
The student keeps his head down. He doesn't even look at me. The guy with the Uzi sits next to him and starts dealing the cards. The lieutenant fills a shot glass with rum.
I don't think I want to offer you a drink.
I didn't want one. The guy with the Uzi is dealing cards without looking up. He mumbles something in Tagalog. The lieutenant laughs, that weird laugh again, like he's about to choke. He's wearing my t-shirt and jeans. He shows them off to me.
What do you think? God bless America. They make the best jeans in the world.
He pours the rum into the same glass. He passes it to the guy with the Uzi, who downs the shot. Then the lieutenant refills the glass and hands it to me. I say no thanks. The lieutenant swipes the glass away. It hits the far end of the room. The guy with the Uzi stops dealing.
Puta puta.
The guy with the Uzi tells him to cool it, snickering like he's enjoying it. He picks up the glass. He fills it and hands it to me. Okay, one shot, just to show you that we're okay.
Are you going to write about me?
No, I'm not.
You're going to write about this place? About the president? You're going to talk about to foreign media? Get us in the news?
No, it takes a lot more for something to become news.
This isn't interesting? Is that it? I'm not interesting?
I'm not a reporter, okay? I'm nobody. I'm not getting anybody in the news. That's not what I do.
But you're always writing.
Just for myself, just to remember.
You want to remember this?
No, not this.
You don't want to remember it? You don't find it an interesting story?
Not you personally, but if I had a choice, I'd rather write about something less unpleasant.
You talk like a writer. You learned to talk like that in school. Maybe you went to a nice school in America. You went to Berkeley, maybe? All the communists in America go to Berkeley, right? You see, I'm not dumb. I know a few things about America. And I didn't even go to school. I hate school. School is for sissies. You want a story, right? Something you can tell back home to your nice sissy friends? I can give you a story.
Not really, no. I don't want anything right now. I just want to know why you're keeping me here. Suddenly, he grabs me by the arm and pushes me out of the room. On instinct, the student makes a move to protect me. The guy with the Uzi shoves him back into the chair. He says, snidely and loud enough for me to hear,
Don't piss him off. Your American friend will be okay.
The lieutenant forces me out through another room and then another. I go through some kind of dreamlike warp and imagine this place is endless and I'm being forced through an infinite number of empty rooms. Finally, we reach a cell with no windows. There's a strong smell of dung. There's no light. In the shadows, there's someone lying on the bare cement floor. It's Eddie. He's been trussed up, his wrists and ankles bound behind him like a pig. He looks up and tries to say something. His lips are battered shut. One side of his face is grotesquely swollen.
He didn't like to drink either. A classy bitch like you.
What's he done to you, man? You can't do this.
No?
He kicks Eddie in the ribs. I hear something crack. Eddie groans and squirms in pain.
I can do anything I want. This is my country. You and your friend, you talk a lot about Mao, about revolution, about drugs. Americans come here for the drugs, right? And the chicks? You like to fuck our chicks? You like our drugs?
No, I don't.
You don't like to fuck our chicks, you bakla?
I don't like the drugs.
We found a lot of drugs in your apartment. You know what that means?
Is that what you're keeping me here for? You're a narc too? The lieutenant pulls a .45 from under his belt.
Do narcs carry these?
I don't know. I've never met any of you before.
Narcs don't carry these. Do I look like a narc?
No.
But you said you never saw a narc before.
No, I haven't.
So how can you
I
say...
don't know. I really don't know.
Don't cut me short. It makes me mad.
Okay.
Okay, what?
Okay, man, I won't cut you short.
I'm still mad. I'm still raving mad.
He points the pistol at me, nudging the muzzle against my ribs.
Ever shot a man before?
No, I don't think I'd like to.
I don't think I'd like to. You talk like a sissy. You a sissy? The guy who comes and visits you, he's a cocksucker, right? Your friend back there, the communist, he's a sissy too.
Not that I know of.
400,000 pesos is a lot of money around here. You know that? That's a lot of money to steal.
Is that what this is about? You want the money back?
I don't care about the money. You Americans, you don't care. What is it with you? In America, money grows on trees, no? Here, trees don't even grow shit. But we're okay. You think that's all we care about? You think we have no pride? You got us all wrong.
He cocks the pistol and points it at me.
Sa ikauunlad ng bayan, disiplinang kailangan. Nice, huh? I can be a poet too. You know what that means? So the country will prosper is we need some discipline. You like that? You like my English?
Tell me what you want, man. Is it the money?
Ever shot a man?
No. He points the gun at Eddie.
Don't blink.
He fires a shot into Eddie's head. It bursts open like a fruit. Blood spurts and jets across the room.
You think I like my job?
There's a stench like sour milk inside the room. It's coming from Eddie. The lieutenant turns to face the wall, holding an arm against it to keep himself steady. Thick, sticky vomit spatters to his feet. He turns around to face me. His face is ashen like someone who's just come out of a long and terrible illness.
I like it. I like it a whole fucking lot.
He spits and staggers out of the room. I'm trying not to look at Eddie. I pull my t-shirt over my mouth and nose. I'm watching a black streak oozing out from under the body. It's inching its way to me, just one thin, greasy line. It creeps forward, then pauses, then crawls forward again. It seems like a thing alive in itself, coming closer and closer to the edge of my feet, driven by a need to make contact with anything. Even when the door opens and the guy with the Uzi tells me to get going, I'm still watching it. I can't make my body move.
I'd like to introduce you to this amazing cast. Jennifer Betit Yen, Ben Mandell, Alexis Camins. Thank you, guys. I think we're doing a scene change here, and then Jessica and I will be chatting with you guys.
Well, I'm just, that blew me away, literally. Eric, you're so violent. Such a gentleman, but he can write those vivid, scary scenes.
I have a dark side.
I know that. Okay. On that note, no, congratulations, because I think it's amazing. You know, you've been writing for so long. In the Philippines, when I first met you, I remember, and this was around, was it 1990 or 91? It was the elections were about to happen.
Right.
And I was sent there to cover the elections, and it was a huge deal because for the first time, people were going to be voting again. Right, after the long, long martial law period, and then the period when Cory came in and she was running the country. But they decided to hold these elections, and it was a very a major moment, it felt like, in the country. So I met you as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
You were a young journalist, and you were working with Sheila Coronel.
I was, right.
And what was the name of the group?
It was called the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism.
Right. And we all went to lunch and talked about what was about to transpire, because I had to sort of coming from New York and go there and go back, and I got the lay of the land a little bit from you and Sheila.
Right.
And
was this the election where Fidel Ramos was?
It was Fidel Ramos, it was Joseph Estrada, it was Miriam
Defensor, yeah.
She was truly
Crazy
fun.
Miriam.
She was one of my favorite interviews. I felt like, am I dreaming? And there were 4 of them. Did I say them all? Oh, Cojuanco.
Right. It's been, I can't even
Yes,
remember.
and who was a very scary man and who refused to talk to me. So that was an interesting thing. But I remember you so vividly because, you know, we talked about your novels, and you are someone who is a poet. You write short stories. This book, which is an important book, is the first book published by an American publisher, a fiction by Eric. But he's an accomplished writer from the Philippines, and I just want to talk to you about a little bit about what it feels like, this sort of long journey. And you've been living here quite a few years.
20 years.
And you also make films, and I mean, you're an artist of many mediums. And this book, in a funny sort of way, brings a lot of your passions and work together, I feel. Your love of film, especially, and how you use all those connections. I mean, I was sort of really enthralled by that. So I just kind of want to, my first question to you is, how do you feel about being this writer today and having all these influences coming from being the disciplined journalist, working with a group that was against the government and, you know, really doing work that was extremely risky and when you were living there, and then coming to the U.S. and becoming the writer you are today? I mean, how do you feel that this has all sort of affected the writing of this book? Because it took you a long time to write this.
It
say,
did.
I have your statement.
Oh, you do?
Of course,
it took
it's
me
important.
10 years to write
Yes,
the book.
but you didn't write, I mean, you stopped and started.
Right. And gave up on it several times and then went back, or it came back to me. You know, so, but yeah, to answer your question, I think my being a former journalist in Manila informs a lot about what I am today. I mean, you know, as a young journalist in Manila, you get to see a lot of things that were forbidden from the general public, and that's basically the reason why I did want to be a journalist against my parents' wishes. They wanted me to be a doctor, of course, you know. So, but it was the only way I could find out exactly what was going on. I didn't know, you know. I was in high school when Marcos declared martial law, and I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't know what was going on. But journalism kind of opened that for me. You know, we used to say, as long as you have a press pass, you could enter anywhere, right? You could go anywhere, and that's how I learned about what was actually going on back then.
But did you always have the passion for writing, and journalism was one way in which you were exploring that writing, or did the creative, you know, I hate all these little sort of categories, but we kind of have to separate them sometimes in conversation. But did you feel like then becoming a poet and you're a playwright too, so it's like that came after the journalism kind of opened you up as a writer? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. I think it just all happened simultaneously. What I felt was my journalism was actually feeding my creative side, because I was finding a lot of stories that I felt would be better served as either fiction or poetry. Also back then, you know, there was censorship. And one of the things we did back then was, instead of saying things outright, you kind of couched your whatever you wanted to say in fiction or poetry, especially poetry. For some reason, the government didn't care much about poets unless they were, like, you know,
they killed a
real,
few.
Right, because they were actively
Right.
part of the communist movement.
Yeah.
But if you were just a poet, they didn't understand what you were doing. They left you alone. So it was kind of like a safe way to write what you really wanted to say, you know, without offending the powers that be. But but journalism was, I think it provided a rich source of material for me.
Oh, I'm sure. And some of these scenes that we heard today, well, particularly good old Lieutenant and the scene in the jail are so detailed and tense. And I'm wondering if you used things you knew from the past, how people were treated. I mean, you were sort of privy to that information.
Right, right.
To create a scene like that's really beautifully rendered and terribly scary. I mean, it's
Right,
really gorgeous, but very scary.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I used some of my experience. I wasn't exactly in jail, although I was briefly once for a night for something really stupid. I was a young journalist writing for a rock magazine, and we went to this concert. We smoked before the concert, of course, and then I had a stick of marijuana in my pocket, and I got searched, and I got, hauled to a military jail overnight. But that's where I saw what was going on. It was horrific, it was.
And you could hear it too.
Yeah, and I could see them beating up some young guys, but fortunately my brother-in-law back then worked for the government press, so somebody called him, one of my friends called him, and he got me out, like, at the crack of dawn or something. But it was terrifying. But some of the lines from that scene, actually, I actually experienced, not in a jail, but my friends and I were on some kind of local train, and for some reason there was a bunch of military guys there who were drinking, and for some reason they wanted to play with me. They and then some of them, they were telling me to drink up, and I was like, no, I don't want to drink, and they were getting angry. But you have to drink, and so I used some of that in that scene. But and I knew they were cops. One of them actually showed me, you know what this is? This is a gun, and I was like, yeah, I could see that. But I got out of that as well.
Well, we're really glad you did. So you were recently back in the Philippines for the big festival.
A pre-launch, right.
And tell us about that experience, because it's been a while since you've been back there as the writer you are. And how was that experience for you with this new book coming?
It was amazing. It's one of the things I've been telling people is that I keep forgetting how polite people are in the Philippines. And it's so nice, it's so not New York, but it was also, I think it was a good opportunity for me to meet a lot of young people who'd been friending me on Facebook. I actually got to meet them face to face. So I think that's really nice. I think it's great that the young people in the Philippines are still reading our works.
Yeah.
When I was growing up when I was a young writer in the Philippines, somebody said we were going to be the last generation to write in English. English was dying out. People would start writing in Filipino, and then our generation would be completely forgotten. But it hasn't happened. In fact, both languages are now seeing some kind of an upsurge in readership, which is really good.
And the proud thing to say here is that Manila Noir, which is the anthology that Eric's wonderful scary story. Oh my God, this guy writes this stuff. You're really good at it too. So just got the Philippine National Book Award for Best Anthology.
Yay.
So we're really like, I was so moved by that. And
right.
I'm hoping that maybe this book, I mean, of course it's going to be available there, but I wonder if you'd be open to doing, a Philippine edition that everybody can afford more easily.
Right. I think Akashic was able to do a distribution deal that people find affordable.
Yeah.
My siblings actually bought copies, so that's a good sign.
Good. So here's some things you say, and I do want to, not take up the entire conversation, because I'm sure there are people here who have things they'd like to talk with you about. But you say here in your author statement, which I found really helpful, that your novel, this new novel, began with a feeling or a whirlwind of feelings. Unlike your previous novels, which began with a plot or an idea for a plot. And it's interesting because most of my novels, believe it or not, begin as feelings too.
Oh, really?
I'm not plot driven at all, or a character. And your characters are so vivid, you know. I mean, and the lieutenant is very memorable to me because he's unpredictable, but he also says some amazingly profound things. And it was 2002, so you have this thing about 9/11 and
Right.
yeah, the connection. But here's what's interesting to me is the specter of martial law hanging throughout this book. You know, it's like it's there and it's got its repercussions and karmic consequences, right? And so would you say in a way that one of the themes of this novel is the karmic consequence? You know, the brothers,
Right.
Janya, and what happens, and I
Yeah.
don't want to like spoil it.
But yeah, I wanted to explore karmic consequences, the consequences of socio-political systems. You know, what happened during Marcos's martial law, and what it did to a lot of people who are still living today. What it did to me. And I also wanted to explore the karmic consequences of personal decisions. So the young father, actually made a lot of decisions that he thought were good at that time. But then you jump forward to the story of the two guys, and they're messed up, and they kind of blame their father for that. But I was, I think some years ago, a bunch of my friends and I were talking about writing about martial law, and one of them actually said, isn't it about time that we stop writing about Marcos and martial law and move on and write about other things? And at that time, I kind of agreed. I thought, yeah, there must be other stories. But then you realize what's going on in the Philippines right now. The Marcoses are back. Imelda's still there. Her son wants to be president, which is
And he'll probably be
and he'll
president.
probably win. It's so absurd. And their cronies are still there. The guys who stole our national economy are still there. And it just never stops. And one of the things I told the young people that I met in Manila last month is that it's crazy that all the things that we fought against back in the 70s and 80s, they're still talking about. They're still going through the same old things. And it's just this whole loop, that doesn't seem to end. So if that doesn't end, then I think our telling and retelling of the Marcos years is probably not going to end as well. Yeah.
Yes, and I feel that your book really sort of opens this up for us again as a conversation, and in a really interesting way and surprising way. I'm going to alliterate some of the things that are in it, and I think it's birth and death, You have abortion, you have amnesia, and what was the other one? Adoption. And really you explore, the repercussions of all that. But I wanted to tell you, one of the things I was thinking about this morning as I was reading your book, I was thinking about the Chilean filmmaker Patricio Guzman, who, I mentioned to you, and you're interested in seeing his work, and I hope you do. His whole body of work has been about the Chilean, sort of consciousness, what happened when their country, went under the regime of the military in 1972, and I think it was in September as well. I mean, I almost feel like all these things happened at the same time in different parts of the world, and I find that very spooky, right? And he was there, still living there, and he filmed when the palace was bombed and when Allende was killed. And you know, for that, a lot of his crew was captured and tortured and killed. And he managed to get out and lived in exile in France for many, many years, and has just gone back to Chile, you know, now that it's kind of okay. But he talks about, and he made a film called, which made me think of this book, called Obstinate Memory, about people who want to forget, you know, and then those who can never forget. And he filmed these college students who had never heard about the massacres or even, you know, had a very distant feeling about it. And were saying things like, well, why do we have to keep talking about this, you know? You know, you have a lot of film references here. And I just feel like that might be something you want to look at because he's completely possessed. And that is his work, his life's work. And I feel like in a way, this is your life's work.
I think if the late Filipino filmmaker Lino Broca had lived, he was one of the most amazing filmmakers back then, but he died in a car accident at the age of 50. I think if he had lived, he would be doing that sort of thing. He would be one of those people who would refuse to forget what had happened during martial law. I met him back then, you know, when I was a journalist, and he was actually, I have a story about the EDSA revolution. I actually was trying, you know, I was covering the, one of the events that was happening. I don't know if you guys know about that, the Yellow Revolution in the Philippines, when the military turned against Marcos and decided to support Corazon Aquino. So I was working for a magazine back then, and my editor told me to cover. Apparently, we heard that troops from the south were being flown in to take over Channel 4, the government station, and my editor told me to go there and check it out. And you know, they were. As soon as the troops landed, they started shooting. All the one faction of the soldiers and the other faction started shooting, and I was on the ground, you know, like everybody else. And then suddenly, this jeep passes by, and it's Lino Broca, and I had interviewed him a week before, and he was calling me like, "Eric, come here, you're just gonna kill yourself." So for the rest of that day, I was with him on his jeep, and that was the day that the Marcoses left, actually. But I remember speaking to him after that, and he was very upset that Corazon Aquino was saying we should forgive and forget. Forgive all the sins of the Marcos people and let's start all over again. And he was just so mad at that. And he said we should never forgive, we should never forget. You know, and you know, he was he became part of the Constitutional Convention, but he walked out because he was, you know, he just felt that everything was the same, you know, and he just felt that that wasn't the right way to change what was going on in the Philippines. But he would have been somebody like that.
Like
you know?
that, yeah, obstinate memory.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so happy for you. This is so great. I'm just like, I'm very moved by this, and I think it's a beautiful, I love this cover.
Oh, thank you.
How did you, my last question before we turn it over, and I hope I'm not eating up all the time, the title. Can you talk to us a little bit about it? I mean, I know.
Right.
But do you want to? I mean, or do you want your readers to discover it through this book?
I think you will, but you know, it's the Descartes Highlands is the region of the moon where the Apollo 16 landed in 1972, just before Marcos declared martial law. So I wanted to juxtapose, I wanted to juxtapose that, and you know, the father keeps talking about the Descartes Highlands and how you can actually see the tracks of the moon rover. From a telescope from Earth, and apparently those tracks are going to remain there because there are no winds on the moon, so they're never going to be erased. So I thought it would be an interesting juxtaposition between that image and the year that Marcos declared martial law and the year that this whole mess began, his, whatever he went through and how that reverberates to the present time.
No, I love the way your mind takes those leaps. Let's see, if I've forgotten anything. Oh, you have this thing called referential mania.
Nabokov,
Yes.
right?
Okay, never mind. Then let's bring on the faith healers. I mean, whatever you're looking for, it's in this book. So I'm going to open it up to the audience and see if anyone has any questions or comments for you. Anyone? You choose.
Sure.
There's lots on this side.
Yeah. With the glasses.
They all have glasses.
Oh, right.
Jan,
And also
yeah,
Jan.
yeah. Is it on? We can hear you. You can hear me? Oh.
There are people watching online.
Oh.
Oh.
Edward Snowden. Citizen
Oh, no.
4.
Hello.
Hey.
Good evening, Ms. Hagedorn and Mr. Gamalinda.
Good evening.
I just wanted to ask because actually the excerpts that we listened to was reminiscent of Ms. Hagedorn's novel, Dog Eaters, for me. And I was just curious, and either of you can answer this, the fact that you both had this commonality of having a feeling to start the novel, and I hope you had that as well for Dog Eaters, and how you had martial law as the backdrop. And Ms. Hagedorn said that you did a beautiful rendering of the violence, but it actually was reminiscent for me of Daisy Avila being tortured by General Ledesma and his goons in her novel. So I was just curious why, with her writing it in the 90s, you revisiting it now, why you made martial law such a focal point, and also why there's this violence in both of your novels. Thank
We're
you.
just violence junkies.
You want to go first?
No, I think you should answer. And then I'll add, I'll add my thoughts, but I think this is for you to add.
One of my favorite filmmakers is Michael Haneke, and he said that somebody asked him why there was so much violence in his films, and he said that he wanted to make a statement about the use of violence in Hollywood films, violence as entertainment. He said violence should not be entertainment. Violence should be repulsive, and some of his films are hard to look at. And he said that's what violence should do to you. You should look away, and you should not like it. I kept that in mind when I was writing the violent scenes. I knew that it would be hard to read. It was certainly hard to write, but I wanted the same, I was thinking along the same line that that's what violence should, that's the feeling that violence should incite in us.
Well, and to answer your question of why we might both be doing this, because I'm not the only person who should be writing about it. Certainly not, and certainly Eric lived through those times and he was there and saw things I've never seen. I've seen it in other ways, and I've interviewed people about it, and things have happened to people I know, but each of us looks at it quite differently, and also Eric is looking at it from a lens of now, and he's telling quite a different story, and I think that we're the same generation. And I was saying to Eric earlier, you're haunted, I'm haunted, we're all haunted by different things, right? But this is why I brought up Guzman's films about Chile. It's kind of like he's exploring the same themes but in different ways over and over, and every time it's something surprising and powerful. You can never know it. And why is it violent? Because that stuff is violent and it's ugly, and people do these things to each other and dogs and to, I mean, you wrote that one scene. It was really
Right.
tough, and you do it early in the book, and I think I'm also thinking of the Jamaican novelist Marlon James, who has a new book out. Everybody's saying to him, "Why is it so violent? Why is it?" And he's like, "Because I'm writing about a time in my country that was really ugly, and I'm not going to make it pretty." And I hope you understand that when I say it was beautifully rendered, I don't mean that he made it pretty. I mean, he's just a really exquisite writer, and he did it with enough, he knew what notes to play, and I appreciate that as a writer. I mean, I have to give him his props, right? But, you can write it too. I mean, I'm saying we all need to write those stories, right? If those are the stories we want to write and we want to keep writing them, we write them in different ways. And Eric has things to say about that time and that I could never say, But I think maybe that's why I'm sitting here in conversation with him too, is because we're exploring some of the same themes perhaps, but we're really different people. And I'm a movie junkie too, but different, different. And I was going to say to you, who are you reading now?
I'm reading a lot of nonfiction.
Like who?
Well,
I love asking this.
Yeah, I haven't given up on Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century yet.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
that guy.
Yeah, that big book.
The French guy.
Yeah, I was one of those crazy people who got the first edition.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I've been reading a lot about economics. I'm just curious about why we here in the U.S. are in the mess we're in. And you read a lot of theory, you read Stiglitz and these other guys, but Piketty is the first one who actually shows you the data, right? This is why we're all messed up, because this is what's happening. It's hard to read. I'm only in chapter 4, but I haven't given up.
And you've been reading it for how long?
Since it came out.
Yeah. No, it's, I was almost going to buy it, and I thought you're never going to get through that. Never.
You have to, I read 2 pages and then I get a headache.
Yeah.
So, but nobody's ever done it before, so it's very interesting. Last night I downloaded something called Racism Without Racists by Eduardo Bonilla Silva. Very interesting. It's about what he calls colorblind racism, which is what he said we're experiencing today. Which I've only read the first chapter last night, but it's a very interesting book, I think, and I think I can use it.
Class.
Right,
Yeah.
in class.
Yeah. And Jan, you had a question?
Yes.
Don't you feel like you're in a karaoke club?
I haven't had very much experience there, but I'll follow you around, Jessica.
Please.
The visual art I love to look at always invites, or to buy or to own, always invites me back to look at it again and again and again. And I love to read, and I barely have enough time. And this is such a rare experience reading this book. From the beginning, I said, I want to come back and read it again, because there's so many layers, there's so many geographies and sexualities and eras, and I just wonder where that incredible complexity in your writing comes from, and if it has to do something with colonization, with, it just was amazing. I felt very truthful complexity.
Colonization, yes, right? I mean, I think coming from a colonized culture does give you a lot of layers in your identity, right?
And hybrid
and
culture
in your
too.
right, and also in your own narrative and in the way you present narrative. I've always wanted to write a simple story, but I can't. I seem to not be able to do that. Every time I have a simple plot, 100 things come in, and I have to actually, push them out so that all the details don't intrude into the story. But yeah, a lot of colonial literature is many layered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except for Scarmetta. But then he's also very layered. But
But he's post-colonial.
And post-colonial, right.
I mean, you're a post-colonial, darling. So,
Okay.
but I think that's even more layers than colonial, because you're openly dealing with a lot of things that colonials could not deal with.
Right,
So,
right.
Plus, I think that's just who you are. You're very complex. He's like brilliant, this guy. No, I mean, I think it's your curiosity and your imagination, but also your post-colonial self, exploring all these things, and you've traveled, so I feel like in your interest in film, I mean, you found the vehicle to kind of, and a storyline that can sort of absorb all these passions of yours that have been going on all his life.
And I do like using film technique in prose. I think film technique works very well. And I use that a lot. Right. In fact, I actually crib a few scenes from films that I like in the book, So, you might recognize some of them, but I do like, like I think the jump cut works very well in fiction. I think the zoom in works very well, So a lot of these, tricks actually are very useful in fiction.
Anyone else? There are a lot of writers here I know who have possible.
There was somebody who.
Hey, Mike.
Hey. Hey, hello, Eric.
Hi.
I was wondering, your book was nominated, or I think it was shortlisted for the 2009, was it Asian Man Literary Prize, I think? I was wondering how much it changed from then and now.
Oh, a lot.
A lot.
The manuscript that I sent to the prize was the stories came one after the other. They were like, I think the way I described it to when I submitted my entry was it's 3 novellas in one book. But at some point after my agent and I started talking to a bunch of publishers and editors, somebody suggested that I chop it up into kind of like, alternating episodes. And at first I didn't want to do that. I thought that would be very confusing for the reader. But she was very convincing. So she told me to just try it and see if it works. And once I started doing that, I actually, for the first time, enjoyed writing the book. It was a very difficult book to write, but chopping it up like that was very enjoyable, and making sure that, because it became a jigsaw puzzle, making sure that the pieces fit was actually a fun thing to do.
And cinematic.
And cinematic,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I have one more question, actually. I think this thing is okay.
It's on.
Your books have been published in the Philippines, like My Sad Republic, and what was the title for
Empire of Memory.
Empire of Memory, I think.
Right.
Have you ever thought about like revisiting those books or trying to get them published in the United States?
I hope so. Actually, Empire of Memory got reissued last October when I was in time for my visit there. And what I did was I completely rewrote the book. This was something that it was something that I and my publisher there had been talking about for years now. And when she said that she was releasing it for the launch of the Descartes Highlands in Manila, I said, well, let me give you the new version. So I like it much better now. I cleaned up the language, I tightened the story a bit, I got rid of some characters that I thought were just superfluous. And one of the writers that I saw there actually told me, so how do you feel about it now? And I told him, I'm no longer ashamed of it.
Wow. That's great to be able to do that. Revisit a book and
rewrite it.
And rewrite it, knowing what you know now.
Right.
So wonderful.
And hopefully it gets published here at some point, who knows.
Anyone else? Oh, yes. And then over there. Okay.
There are these 3 strands, the father and the 2 boys. And it's very interesting in the book to see how these lives come together. And in some way it's cinematic, and yet there's something about the fiction form that makes them feel at once, perhaps that one is in the past, but actually makes it feel like they're happening at the same time. And I'm just wondering if that was a conscious decision. It's how I experienced it. I don't know if anyone else had that experience,
Yeah,
but
I
it was.
did too. Yeah.
It's kind of a haunting experience, because this idea of a collapsed history and who this person is and his decisions, get interwoven in these very interesting ways. So I just wondered if you could say something about that.
I did want to create that kind of effect. I was worried at first that it might make the whole novel a little confusing, but I wanted the presence of the father to be there all the time, not visible to the characters in the beginning, but at some point when they start discovering fragments of his journal, then his presence becomes even more looming. But I wanted the presence to be there constantly throughout the book, because it is a kind of haunting, as you say, right? And I think in the beginning, the haunting isn't there yet. You just know that there's this third story, and you wonder how that's going to connect with the two characters. But hopefully, at some point in the middle, you realize that all the three stories are actually connected.
Young lady.
Okay. Oh, okay. I don't know if this is a fair question to ask, but I guess as a reader, you rarely have the chance to ask this of the author before reading the text. So you said in the artist statement, you mentioned referential mania, and I guess what kind of work do you ask your reader to do in terms of that? So thinking about Nabokov and maybe Pale Fire or something, where you're kind of having this manic moment as a reader and encountering the text in that way. I don't know if that made any sense or if that was a question. But what kind of work would you say the reader has to do before actually even encountering the text?
Hopefully not much. Although I think the reader's experience will be richer if he knew what I was referring to, and hopefully I'm not making things obscure in the book, or any references obscure, because I think I kind of explain, or the characters kind of explain why they mention referential mania or something like that. But I do think that I think somebody who's read Nabokov or Dostoevsky would have a richer experience when the characters start talking about these authors, or the filmmakers.
But it's pretty much, you say it in context, it's one of the characters feels like he's having a moment of that. Right? And because as the reader, you're seeing exactly, he has it right before he says it to us. He has a moment just like, so you know what he's talking about. For example, I didn't know that, this is something from Nabokov, but yeah, I got it. So you'll be fine. Especially because Pale Fire. Great. Yeah, I think it's very accessible, and you do make it it's beautifully simple. That's why I like the writing. It's not,
and the characters warn you before they drop names. Like, I'm gonna drop
talk about
Dostoevsky now,
and
but
this
you'll
French
be okay.
filmmaker. Yeah. And it's fun, so it's not off-putting or, oh my God, I have to know all this stuff. It's kind of like, I discovered that. It's like, oh, that's what I have. Oh, never knew. Anyone else? Christine.
First of all, thank you. Eric, I want to start a writerly question and then a musical question. In terms of, you talked about it took 10 years to write this book. Could you maybe talk about what kept you going during that time? What made you feel that this is a book that needed to be in the world? how does it feel now that it's here? How do you feel about it? And then the musical question, what was that concert that you missed because you had to go to prison?
It was the New Moon concert. You know, they have it every year, but yeah, and I heard it was a really great concert. I kind of gave up on the book so many times. I think I was kind of like, you know, trying to abort it. I was the abortionist in this. Yeah, and there were. First of all, it was the characters were so hard to get into, and when I write characters, I usually try to, you know, inhabit the characters, and they were just, you know, they're so messed up, and it was hard to just try to see the world through their eyes. So that was one of the reasons why, for several times, I thought of giving up the book. So I stopped doing it. After, you know, writing a couple of versions, I would just lay it aside, and I would tell myself, well, that's it, this thing is dead. But it just kept coming back, though. And then I revise it again, and then I tell myself, okay, this sucks, you know, this, I'm just going to throw it. Then it'd come back again. So finally, when I heard about the Man Asian Prize, I thought, well, this might be a good way to see if it's worth anything, you know. And when it became a finalist, I reread the whole thing. I thought, maybe it is kind of okay. You know? So, and I think that's how, you know, everything happened after that. You know, I got to, my agent called me, and you know, this guy called me and said he wanted to represent me, and then we started working on it again, and then he found Akashic, who's here, by the way. It's probably a good time to say thank you to Akashic, coolest publisher on the planet. And I think that's how it just, you know, it just refused to die.
It's hard to write about such, like you say, unhappy people.
Yeah.
Because we become our characters, we're channeling them, we're speaking for them, and you know, when you live in that world for so long, you know, it can be really difficult. So it's really great that you submitted it and sort of got, wait, you know, some affirmation or something that it was worth all that pain.
Yeah, when I was a kid, our family doctor actually told me to stop writing because I was writing such depressing things, and it was he said your writing is making you sick, you know, because I was very sickly when I was, you know, but I didn't listen to his advice. You know?
You good?
One thing about, because, you know, I mean, I read it, I remember reading it a while ago when there was, of course, the Italian was in it, the Italian brother. And so I'm just thinking about the way this novel, or if you could talk about the way, along with Jessica's work, and I think with Jessica's work and your work, the way you're expanding the subjects for the Philippine novel, or for the novel. Let's say it's not Philippine novel, but the novel of where you want to talk about the place that you're from, but you have also all these different interests, obviously, and you keep how sometimes a novelist like you might be asked to, you know, just fit the box of the Filipino. And what I was so excited about with this novel was that it's really big. I mean, it's the boundaries are huge. Mm-hmm. And to think about the fact that the early novels in English by Filipinos, were also very big. I mean, the novel by Juan Laya, His Native Soil, the novel by even the Filipino Rebel by Maximo Calao, huge novels. I mean, they're all over the place. You know, Filipino Rebel is in Spain, Hong Kong, America, the Philippines. But sometimes it seems you're being asked to just do the identity novel or whatever it is that you're being asked to do by the publisher. And so I thought it was so cool that it was so big. You're back to the old Filipino novel, which was actually quite
expansive,
quite international. Yeah. What problems did you have with that? Did you have problems with that as a writer, that that your novel was not seemingly typical. I mean, it didn't have a fruit in the title, for instance.
I thought about it for many years, actually, when I first came here, because that was, there was a type of novel that was expected of you as an Asian American writer, right? And for years, I actually considered writing something along that line, just so I could sell a book. But I also realized that a lot of the Asian American writers from many years before have already laid the groundwork. Asian American fiction actually began, according to Elaine Kim, when Asian diplomats started writing books as a way to introduce their culture to America. And they were mostly books that tried to portray Asians as decent, normal people, right? They're not the kind of people that were depicted back then, right? So it was kind of right. And I think Asian American fiction stems from that kind of thinking of trying to introduce ourselves to the American public, and trying to introduce ourselves as normal people, just like everybody else. And I think a lot of the earlier writers had done an excellent job of doing that, of laying the groundwork for people like us. And I think now is a good time to start writing beyond the norm. I think if anybody still wants to understand what the cultural historical background is, say, about the Philippines, they can read they can read Bulosan, they can read other people who've done the work for us, right? So I think it's a good time to be expansive and to write whatever we want to write.
Well said.
I think we're out of time.
We're good? We're good. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, writers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, because I think this idea of being of a big and complex story that is at once grounded in some ways within Filipino culture, and I just appreciated that you brought up Chile, because it feels like it's of a post. I don't know if there's what the term is, but it's post-specific in a way. There's some piece of this story that is pinpointing something that I don't know that I've ever really experienced in the same way in literature. It's without hitting you over the head in some way. Mm-hmm. So coming out of the Vietnam War generation and all of that, where so many things were didactic in a particular way or kind of obvious. And there's something that's what's so haunting about your novel is that it doesn't ever let you, just feel some relief, like, okay, now I get it. That's what has stayed with me. Like, these characters have stayed with me. And we're talking about it tonight. I mean, I read it, 2 months ago, and it's like I realized, oh, wow, this really did have a big impact. So I just, my hat's off to you, and it was, this was a great conversation, and I think I'm really delighted that there are so many people who are involved with creative writing in various ways and bringing new kinds of stories to the fore and kind of getting out of some of the silos that have been out there. Anyway, join us in the back, but a big hand for both Jessica and Eric.